Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself, Mike, and Sloth today. Lads, we've been saying about youth, we've been saying about MUBAMA in particular, and he did get his slight chance to shine at Burnley. Maybe less minutes than we all thought or wanted him to get, but came on and made a really good impact. Obviously, didn't get credited the goal in the end, which is harsh on him once again, but we're just going to go through some of the stuff that's come out recently, actually in the last kind of hour or so regarding Athletic and, some of the quotes from Moyes and Mubama. But before we get into that, how pleased were you to see him come on and make that impact that he did against Burnley on Saturday?
Yeah, I think me and Sloth were pretty infused. At the weekend, we were really positive about it. It's good. Let's face it, when one of your own comes out and plays, it's a bit different for fans, of all clubs. So the fact he came on, he made an impact. He turned the game on its head by forcing the own goal. I think that's great. I think as fans, that's what we want to see. Because he came on, he had energy, and that's something we seem to have lacked. So yeah, I was really positive, really happy. Moyes gave him good minutes as well by bringing him on around about 60 minutes. So I could have been happier for him. Probably would have been a bit happier had that goal been given to him. But it's a fantastic way to make a point to the manager that not only do I deserve a new contract, I also deserve to be given more minutes over maybe more senior players. And his age shouldn't be a factor in any kind of selections.
We'll get onto the contract situation shortly because there's a few rumours about that as well and what he's being offered. But let's start with kind of the quotes from Moyes, following the Burnley win, because they're actually pretty interesting, and I'd like to hear what you guys think about them because they're quite controversial. So let me just start with him saying, we want to play Divine, but he has quite a lot of competition. I don't know how many 19-year-old centre forwards are playing in the Premier League. It's something which is getting harder because it's such a difficult role. The level of competition to be a centre forward is really high. But Divin is different from the rest. He has a mentality and an attitude that is as good as any top player, so determined and works incredibly hard. So we know what we're going to get with Divine. What we need him to do is develop in all of his actions and technical ability, but he's only 19 and he did a great job for us when he came on. So there's two kind of flip sides to that. Sloth, what did you read from those kind of Moyes quotes after the game?
I'm not reading too much into it. I think it's disappointing to hear that sort of age picked up on as much as it is, or I think a lot of people are reacting to that quote and taking it maybe a bit too much to heart. But I think overall, it's positive. It's I'm going to be optimistic and say it's hinting that there's more game time there, and we want to get him started. But let's face it, we did play the bottom of the league side, and I know that's I'm not taking a dig at any specific Twitter accounts here, but the bottom of the league Burnley side, like we should be winning against them, but it's that's what a lot of people are gonna say. So I think, did he do enough to impress? Yes, it's clear from Moyes' answer that he has done that. Does he do enough to start the next game? I think that's going to be the issue. But in terms of the things he's saying about Mubama's attitude, I think it was clear as day. If you saw his post-match interview as well, he was so well spoken. He had a very mature response, and he was literally saying, like, how good it was to get out there, but also he acknowledged that it wasn't his goal, and it's more about the work rate for the team, and that's the important thing. And I was so impressed by that.
Let me just read what he actually said, because we've got it here as well. He said as well after the game, it's great to come on, get more minutes, show the boss what I can do. I want to get on the end of crosses and things like that. This is what I like, to bring energy and put defenders on the back foot. I've tried to do that every time I've come on. I've done that all the way throughout my time with the academy, with his pressing and his running. He said he'll take a little bit of credit for being in the right place, but he just wanted to say thank you to the gaffer for bringing him on. So, like you mentioned, very humble, very well grounded, has that right attitude, and he's already alluded to that attitude and how he approaches games throughout his time at the academy. So that's already transferred onto the pitch. We saw that against Burnley, the amount he was pressing, really lead. It looked like we had a striker on. For the first hour, we didn't look like we had a striker on at all. As soon as he came on, he gave us an outlet. He was chasing stuff. We pressed higher up the pitch. So absolutely, he deserves credit for the difference he made, even though he didn't get that goal. So does it frustrate you then, Mike, that in the post-match press conference from Moyes, he keeps alluding to the fact, he's only 19, there's only Evan Ferguson in the Premier League who is 19 and playing that striker role. So is that the side that frustrates you rather than focusing on just his attributes?
Yeah, I think that's what frustrates me. Me and Sloth were definitely in the age of West Ham fans of when the player, if they were good enough, the age was irrelevant. Seeing the likes of Joe Cole, Rio Ferdinand, Jermaine Defoe, players that arguably weren't ready, and they went out on loan and they were making starts at 18. In case of like Joe Cole and Michael Carrick, was 17 years old. They made their debuts. Slightly different time in terms of money, etc., and maybe having to develop more. But again, it was still the old adage of if you're good enough, you are old enough, and that's what I kind of feel that when you look at MUBAMA, you look at what he's been doing at a youth level when he's come on for those cameos, and you kind of see a player that is itching and raring to go. Now, you can't say that it was 100% there already. However, you also then look at what you have in your team and within your stable of strikers. And when one is so out of form, I'm not going to say his name. Everyone's going to know who it is. There's no point saying his name and jumping in again on him. You then kind of have to go, well, the manager is maybe making an incorrect choice by picking someone who's so unsuited, however, has this youth player that is arguably the antithesis of what he wants in a striker. And the worst thing about him is that he lacks experience and he lacks that, that seasoned maturity or that know-how in a game. And that's what I think kind of sometimes counts against MUBAMA. And when you see the quote from Moyes, it's very much give, take away. But again, I don't mean take away in a negative way. I think also it's looking to challenge MUBAMA. I think we constantly have this conversation, depending on which camp you're on David Moyes. I think those comments are taken in any way. And if you really kind of try and be very balanced about it, yes, there are some negative things talking about his age as a drawback, as a concern, essentially, as a reason maybe why not to pick him, because the inexperience is not something you can trust in such a position where you need to have someone who is maybe have a little bit more about them, because you need to take a bunch of defenders. But what I would say is that he's also clearly challenging him as well, because he's saying that we really like you. I really like your attitude. You do all of these things incredibly well. However, I need you to improve technically. I need you to improve on, a couple other areas. So it's frustrating. You can understand why Moyes has had hesitancy. However, it's a bit like an overprotective parent, not unwilling to take the stabilizers off. And that's what it feels a little bit like. And you just like to see that maybe just take one of the stabilizers off.
Do you think? Yeah. Do you think also as well, because, this time last year in January, Moyes actually signed Ings and, he pursued that pretty heavily after we couldn't get Moffey. And, we've put a lot of wages into Danny Ings. So is there that kind of factor as well? Because if he doesn't start playing Danny Ings, is it almost like a hit to the ego, maybe that stubbornness of Moyes that we've seen? And if he, turns to youth in that situation, he's almost playing himself up in that situation.
I don't see what he has to gain from that. He's in the last year of his contract, and either way, if he falls flat on his face from decisions that he makes, well, he lives and dies by his sword. If he thrives and say MUBAMA comes in now and he gets double figures in the league and he absolutely smashes it, then he's going to go forward with that, and he's going to go up to his negotiations and be like, look, what do you want? Like, I've got you settled in the league, and we won the Conference League last year. This year, who knows what could happen, but say we do well in Europe, we've given you another European run, and this is partly down to me playing a youngster who I've decided to come in and
save you £30 million and needing to go get another striker.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's he's going to have to live and die by these decisions. Yeah. But I don't think his ego will come into play with that. I think that's kind of let's face it, if you're in a results-based business, you're not going to put your ego above actually getting that result that can mean that you go on to do better things.
Do you think there's also the argument of, you know, to kind of counter it, is that, you know, Danny Ings, although he hasn't looked like he's suited our system, he has got a track record of being a very good Premier League goal scorer. And, you know, when we're missing Antonio and Bowen against someone like Burnley, is it perhaps, is it a bit harsh for us to be sitting here and saying, you know, MUBAMA should have started the game, or have we seen enough of Ings now to know that that isn't just going to work?
We've seen enough of him. I think it's kind of it's unfair. It's unfair on Danny Ings because he's so different from what the system requires or what we know that Moyes looks for in a striker. That if Ings was brought into play as this second striker off someone like Scamacca or like off Antonio, then we also needed to go out and get that striker. We can't have sold Scamacca to then just go, oh, well, Danny Ings is here and, you know, he could play up top. It's completely unfair on Ings, and that's why
he could play in that one-man system and he could help hold the ball up. And Danny Ings just doesn't.
I think that's ultimately the frustration with this situation, is that you've got someone who suits the system, and they're inexperienced and they don't have those goals in the league, but when it's coming at the expense of someone who doesn't suit the system whatsoever and is, you know, ineffective, being kind there, when he plays, then fans want to see the opportunities go to someone fairly. And I just think that, you know, hopefully this has been a period of time where MUBAMA's thought, okay, right, I'm gonna watch, I'm gonna learn, and he's getting that experience under his belt, and he's grown and developed. But
what I also like is I don't with the contract situation, I don't think it's a case of him wanting loads of money. I think, you know, there are rumors coming out that he's being offered similar to what Reece Oxford was offered, and, you know, he was a lot younger at that time as well. But I think with MUBAMA, we're seeing, you know, that attitude and, you know, his actual want to play games and prove himself is what's holding back the contract. It's not actually to do with the money. He could easily sign that contract, you know, sit on the bench, maybe go on loan, and not worry about that. But he wants to play games, and he wants to know that he's actually going to get game time at West Ham if he does sign that contract. So I think this is the perfect time for Moyes to do it now. There really isn't any more, if you want to call them excuses, or you know, something, any blockers to playing him, because we've got a pretty favourable Europa League match on Thursday, which MUBAMA should absolutely be starting in, which we're going to dissect more in our preview in a couple of days' time. But, you know, there's no more excuses now. You know, MUBAMA has to play. We've seen, like you mentioned, we've seen enough of Danny Ings in the system. It doesn't work. It's a shame for both Ings and West Ham that's happening. And it's not fair on Ings. And
that's transfers, and some work, some don't. And I think the biggest thing from MUBAMA, which maybe I don't think anyone really kind of mentioned, is that it shouldn't really be a matter of his age anymore or whether he's going to score goals, because I understand that the point would go, striker's role is to score. However, as we saw against Burnley, that pressing ability allowed us to step up the pitch. And if you look at the players that we have just behind him, you got Paqueta, you're going to have, you know, should have, when he come back, Bowen. You've got Kudus, you've got Souček is in scoring form, even Ward-Prowse. So you start to look and go, actually, if he doesn't go and score, it's not necessarily a huge problem, because as long as he's leading that line and running that line for you, you have others who can score. And we've seen that for many a time with Antonio. He's gone on barren patches without goals. However, he's been integral to our play because of how he leads that line and how he opens up space for others. And I think that's one of the important things for MUBAMA, is I don't think there should be that pressure, or I don't think if there's that idea that he has to score, even at West Ham, I think that's maybe the wrong way of looking at it, because it's what we need you to do is that honest kind of, not donkey work, but, you know, that honest kind of workhorse kind of work up front to create the spaces for others. And ultimately, as we see with Antonio, that does then ultimately result in you being afforded chances and chances provided for you as well, because you have created space for others, which you can then ultimately benefit from.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's definitely the time for MUBAMA. I think we're all in agreement on that. So hopefully we do get to see him before the end of the year a little bit more. And, yeah, this is the perfect time to play him. And I think he's proved enough now to warrant a start in a couple of games to see what he can provide to us in the Premier League and the Europa League as well. So, yeah, let us know your thoughts on MUBAMA and the whole situation. Would you like to see more of him? Are you on Moyes' side with how he's kind of treating him and easing him into the starting 11, should we say? Let us know in the comments. Leave a like on the video as always. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. And lads, until next time.
Come on, you
Come on, you
Irons.
Irons.